Hey folks, I'm here with Cory Dreyer on Lake Murray in South Carolina. And you're pre-fishing today for the kayak bass fishing tournament that's here in a couple days.
Correct.
So
yep. Trail series and the pro series.
So I'm gonna tell you today, and I got a clipboard here with a bunch of interview questions. And you've been doing kayak fishing tournaments for 10 years now. This is, what was your
10th year?
10th year doing them, and starting I guess the local level and doing some charity tournaments, in North Carolina all the way up through the 10 and national championship, all sorts of different trails.
Yep. So
we're gonna get a 10-year retrospective on kayak fishing tournaments, and you're gonna tell the story of how it's progressed from handing in SD cards to the tournament director to all the technology and how big it's become.
Right.
All right, Cory. Before we get into this list of questions, give me a bow to stern on your rig. What kayak are you in, and what accessories and
okay.
What makes this the battleship that puts you in the best position to win?
So this is the brand new Wilderness Systems Recon HD model. So this is the boat that you could use a pedal drive in as well. I choose to motorize my boat with the Torqeedo 1103 Ultralight. I can cover a lot of water during practice as well as the actual event. But this is the Recon HD. Like I said, it's a newer boat. It's been out for about 2 seasons now. It's 12 foot, 38 inches wide, so super stable, can stand up very easily in it. That's what a lot of questions people have is, can I stand up? I can flip, turn around, stand up on the front. I can do all kinds of things. So it's a great boat. I'm also running a 106 Ultra Garmin unit with side scan. See that I have live scope as well. So I've got this hooked up on Fish Finder's mount arm. Let's see, I am running Yak Power lights with the wireless switch. So I've got all my electronics hooked up to a Dakota lithium battery. 23 amp hour battery powers everything that I need. Lasts more than a day. I've got internal lights. I've got my navigation lights up on the front. Throttle for my 1103 kayak cushions. So that's a must for long days on the water. Let's see what else I've got here. Got my catch board, my Z-Man bait lockers. These are new. These things are a must to keep all your stuff organized. Plano boxes. Let's see, I've got a power pole mount on the back. Today I'm going to be fishing deeper water, so I don't need my power pole, but typically I have that on there. Casting rods. I've got Shimano reels, and the majority of the baits I use is Z-Man.
Okay, let's compare that to 10 years ago. You're in your first kayak fishing tournament ever. What boat are you in, and what'd you bring with you?
So 10 years ago, I was actually, my first tournament that I fished, I was in a Wilderness Systems Ride 135. It had the low seat in it, and the Air Pro Max seat wasn't out yet, and I was frothing at the mouth to get that seat just to be at a higher elevation, more comfortable. But I was running a 5-inch at the time, a Lowrance, and didn't have side scan. It was just regular 2D sonar and GPS. I didn't have a lot of toys at that time.
So for the time, that was all cutting edge. That was
Yep.
you're leaning into the best technology available to give you the best advantage competing.
Right. So I got the best at the time, like you said.
Yep.
I was paddling the boat, obviously. There was not really very many pedal drives out at the time. Motors weren't really a thing.
Right.
That's kind of evolved over the years. I had a mix at that time. I had a mix of rod and reels, and I was still an avid fisherman, but once things evolved and started getting into the business side of things a little more, I started to get sponsorships and deals and things like that, and started to really get my gear dialed in to what helped me excel in tournament formats.
Nice.
But in 10 years, you know, things have advanced, you know, greatly, you know, especially in the boats. Motors now, I mean, I couldn't do what I do without a motor. I have bad knees, a bad back. Pedaling, I can do it for a short period of time, but it really bothers me, to be quite honest with you. Live scope and all that stuff, you know, is definite advantage.
All right, Cory, if I promise not to publish this until after the tournament, will you tell me where you're at with pre-fishing so far? You've had a couple days out here and figured out a few things, right?
So yesterday was the first day I pre-fished. I went to 2 different areas. To be quite honest with you, I didn't do great. I caught a limit. It took most of the day. The biggest thing though is I eliminated water.
What does that mean? Everyone says that. What does eliminating water really mean?
So eliminating water means water that I'm not going to fish. It didn't produce.
So in other words, I ain't going back here?
Yeah.
All right.
It didn't produce any fish. The fish weren't there in the area that I thought yet. Another 2 or 3 weeks with the water warming up, they definitely should be there. You know, I found the second half of yesterday after we made a move, we found a finger on the lake that was loaded with shad. They were 1.5 to 2 inch shad, but there was millions of them. Bass were on them, actively feeding. We caught 3 out of it, missed a couple, but
so it's the start of a pattern?
Yeah, it was just really hard to mimic that bait and get them to feed on a lure. They had so much bait around that, you know, it was easy for them to just do that versus work for it. Right. It seemed like.
So you've changed locations. We're in a completely different part of the lake today.
Yeah, we went down towards the dam and clearer water. We focused up on the other end of the lake yesterday, up towards the river. Visibility up there was, you know, 1 foot to 1.5 feet. Here is 5-6 foot, maybe more.
Oh, it's clear.
It's really clear. So we didn't really fish docks yesterday. I fished a few and had a couple bites, so I figured I'd come down here, fish clear water, more finesse technique, shaky head and drop shot, and kind of see what I can put together. I like to fish docks. Being, you know, back home in North Carolina, we have a lot of lakes with docks, but, you know, see how it works out.
You're fishing what's familiar, what feels like home.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So right here I'm fishing a brush pile with a little bit of rock there that it looks like it's weighed it down, but you can see there's a fish right there swimming. So you can see it kind of light up a little bit.
Yeah.
There was 3 or 4 that were actually in the brush pile. You can kind of see their marks. They're kind of hidden down in there. But right now I'm using, there's a fish right here. Ooh, that's a nice one. That's the one that was swimming off to the edge. It's a good start. So that fish actually hit dead sticking it. I was more or less letting it sit on the bottom while we were talking. And that was a fish that we saw that was swimming off of the brush pile. So came by and picked it up off of the bottom. So just caught one that was 15, 16 inches, somewhere around that range. And what I did is I actually marked that as a waypoint as a fish because I caught a fish there and saw other fish versus just a brush pile. So I know, you know, when I come back to this area, I can go on my map and see where I actually caught fish or saw fish. And hopefully, you know, that kind of puts the pieces together for me during the tournament. I can hit these individual spots and cover a lot more water than just blind casting to these areas. But to be honest with you, live scope has been a you know, I hate to use the word game changer, but it really is. When you learn to use it, really get it dialed in, and I still don't have it dialed in 100%, but I'm able to see fish like I showed you a minute ago. And what that does is it really, you know, eliminates water like we talked about other ways, you know, from yesterday. Dead water where there's no fish movement, no bait, and things like that. So what I did is I actually came down this dock, and I really didn't see anything on this dock. And as I was coming over here to the second dock to hit, you know, I'm running perspective mode and got it out to 60 feet and just kind of scanned out here in open water to see if there was any rock piles or brush piles or something like that. And I saw these, turned around, and noticed there was fish on it and caught that one. So pretty jacked up. This is the first dock I hit and caught a decent fish to start.
So Cory's gonna leave it alone. He knows there's more fish on there, but I'm gonna stick a camera down there and look at it, and hopefully that's something that you know, come tournament day he can come and catch some more fish off of it. But let's stick a camera down there and see what we got.
So that you know, set of Christmas trees there, that brush pile that somebody had put out, you know, without live scope and being able to scan with electronics, I would have totally missed that. Like I said, I didn't have a bite on that dock, didn't see anything there. When I was coming over to this dock over here, just scanned and saw that. So there's a couple fish off to my 2 o'clock here. It's kind of hard to see because they're on the outside of the range, but as you move this, you can kind of see where they're swimming. There's another one over here. Let's see if I can get it. I think no, there he is. He's about 35, 40 feet out in front of us. Let's see if I can get that fish to bite.
Ooh, you can really see him moving now.
He just turned around on it. That's what it looks like. It's actually swimming closer to me, so I don't know if he's coming after my bait. I can't see my bait yet. There's actually two there. Do you see them swimming side by side?
I definitely see the one.
Let's see. Looked like there was another mark. I think they're hugged right next to each other. Let's see if we can get them to turn again.
It's from fishfindermounts.com, is that right?
Fishfindermounts.com. Yeah. If I remember correct, this is called their Pro model. Comes with everything you need. I actually mounted a Hobie H-rail to my railing so that it was quick on and off. Used a universal mount from Hobie to mount this plate on there. And it was the stuff that I've had in the garage and didn't really have to fab up a whole lot of DIY stuff, and it works great. You know, I can take it off for when I don't need it, but situations like this, you know, I really like to use live scope. Yesterday, fishing trees and things, I could have used it, but I was trying to cover a lot more water and just find bites, so I really didn't use it. The negative to live scope is you can waste a lot of time. Like as I'm sitting here, you know, I wouldn't say it's wasted time, but during a tournament, you could see fish that are not actively feeding. And
can you tell by their how they move if they're ready to eat or
yeah,
not?
You can actually throw different baits, like reaction style baits. Like I'll throw a jerk bait out there and you can watch them follow it, and sometimes their whole mood, you can kind of tell if they kind of speed after your bait, you can more than likely get them to eat. Sometimes they'll just follow it real slow and just kind of watch it, and they'll peel off a little bit. They're really not interested.
Yeah. So you've learned how to tell by their their body
language. Yeah.
whether they mean business or not.
Correct.
Interesting. All right, man. You've you got a little bit of progress here. I feel like we've abandoned the interview questions and we've jumped right into you're establishing a pattern. What do you got so far, man?
So what I'm doing now is I've kind of abandoned fishing docks, specifically right now looking for fish, and just running live scope and searching for brush piles. And these are brush piles that are, man-made, placed by somebody. PVC pipes. We saw one that had a canoe that was cut in half and placed on the bottom, and they're actually holding fish. And so I got to see a fish that was 9-10 pounds cruising around with one that was probably 3, and they're kind of paired up. And actually we found a bed, believe it or not, and looks like they're bedding in the area. They're not far from there, so that's really a positive thing. I learned a lot from that already. And so what I'm doing now is I'm gonna look for more brush piles and see what I can find, and just mark as many as I can and have a nice little milk run.
While you do that, let me ask one of these questions. I got one that is, lots of kayak anglers wish that they could make a living in kayak fishing. You actually do that. Tell us a little bit about your employment history in the kayak fishing industry and what you're doing now. I think, people have it in their mind that, like, hey, to make a living at kayak fishing, you need to do the tournament trail full time, and that's really tough, but there's other ways to do it. And I know, honestly, pro staffing,
right,
if you do it well, is a long-term job interview.
It really is, and that kind of materializes into actual sponsorships. So there's pro staffing and there's sponsorships. Sponsorships is actually, the majority of the time, is going to be free product, monetary, compensation and things like that. So a lot of my sponsors, I actually, built relationships over the year on the business side of fishing, and I'm actually monetized, so that helps me cover my cost for, my events and travel and, stays at hotels, houses, Airbnbs, and things like that. So, it's not something that you can really jump into immediately. There's some guys that have had some success on the trail that, won a really big tournament, and it really helped, push them through to the next level, so to speak, and get some of that monetary compensation. But, you have to work for it. It is a job. Social media is a huge thing, and it's tough to do. I work full time in the outdoor industry. I'm a sales rep for Confluence and Pelican. So we sell kayaks, paddleboards, canoes, and so I'm around this, day in and day out. But work is priority, for the 9 to 5. But also I have to work for my sponsorship deals as well, which is helps me in being a professional angler in the kayak scene. And it takes a lot of time. It's something that I enjoy. I have it's my passion. And I've been doing it for a while now. So
but you started by working at Get Outdoors at some point, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I was working full time for actually Energizer Battery Company, and they downsized and did a lot of layoffs, and I was one of the last people to get laid off, and they basically went off of time and grade and how long you've been there. And it was somewhat of a blessing, because I had a relationship with Get Outdoors in Greensboro, North Carolina already from kayaking, kayak fishing, and I went up there and talked to them about possibly working for them. And I was an assistant manager and helped with buying and things like that. Was there for 4 years, and that's what turned what I do now kind of materialized from working there. So I met all the sales reps in the industry, and they had a position open with Confluence Outdoor, and I decided to take that, and I've been there 4 years now.
Right.
So I love my job. I love all my accounts. It's fun being in the industry and something that you enjoy. So it's been great.
Cool.
I felt the bite.
So what was your first kayak fishing tournament?
So my first kayak fishing tournament was actually a charity event that back in 2012 that Get Outdoors, where I worked, had hosted, and local event out on Randleman Lake, and I did okay. I think I placed in the top 5. There wasn't very many people. It was like 30 anglers, but wasn't great conditions for that tournament or anything like that. And that really just fueled my passion for kayak tournament fishing. So that was the first event that I did, and then actually I fished a couple online challenge series from KBF back when they had the KBF forum, and did that first year in 2012, and then in 2013 I fished the second KBF Open ever, and that was down on Santee Cooper, and I finished in the top 10, and if I remember right, I finished 9th or 10th, and cashed a check there, and you know, that really even fueled the passion a little more for competing. And that Sunday we had an opportunity to fish some private lakes for a big bass event, and I finished in the top 3 in that for the big bass and cashed another check, and from there it just continued on. And I had a really long streak. Chad Hoover from KBF likes to tell the story to a lot of people. For a few years there, every single event that I fished, I cashed a check in. And then I had one bad event. 2 events after that, I cashed checks, and then it kind of went downhill from there. Kids are getting older, not as much time on the water, and you know, I could make all the excuses in the world, but you know, the competition's gotten more fierce. We have a lot of competitors. You know, there's a lot of good anglers that we have to fish against, but you know, I'm okay with that. It's, you know, it's me versus the fish. Right. So
if someone's brand new to the kayak fishing scene, and they're maybe competing in kayak fishing tournaments for the first season, what advice do you have for them? What are some skills that they need to develop and prepare themselves for this sport?
Do as much research as you can about the body of water if you're unfamiliar with it. That's one.
What does that entail?
So research, you know, a lot of us travel a long way, and we haven't fished all these lakes. You know, you have so many tools at your disposal. You have YouTube, tons of videos you can learn from. You know, really get a eyes on the water and what it kind of looks like. You have Google Earth. You can go back and you can check dates, water levels, you know, look at different times of the year to see where the water's at. Google Maps. I mean, there's a lot of different things. Navionics, you know, I use the web app from Navionics a lot on my computer and iPad, and just kind of get a general area of what I like to fish. And that's a big thing, you know, for me is doing a technique that I enjoy and that I'm fairly good at. You know, fish your strengths. That's the number one thing. A lot of people that get into, you know, tournament fishing and things like that, they try all different things, but
they try to play other people's game.
Right. They try to play someone else's game, and that's not going to work for you. You know, you're forcing.
So what are your strengths as far as finesse? Let's pick on finesse first. What is your
shaky
go-to?
Heads?
Because that's what you caught your first one here.
A shaky head is really my go-to finesse swim baits, and things like that. Drop shot, you know, I can cast a drop shot and do fairly well, you know, hunting for fish, especially in grass and stuff like that. But vertical jigging with drop shot, I still haven't figured that game out. And I've tried, but it's one of those things that I'm not proficient at. So I practice on my off time, but during a tournament, I really steer away from that.
And power fishing, what is your?
Yeah, power fishing is my go-to. I love power fishing, spinner bait, you know, chatter baits, crank baits. You know, I like to cover a lot of water typically. The only time that you're going to see me kind of sit down on a spot is if I have an area that's just absolutely loaded with fish. But other than that, you're going to see me, you know, with my Torpedo hammered down and just covering tons of water. And trying to find those bites, especially in practice. And if I get a lot of bites, I'll turn around and slow down and throw a shaky head or a Texas rig worm or something like that.
Right. So obviously getting really familiar with the rules.
Yes, that is the other
is really, you know, can be the difference between cashing a check and not. But besides familiarity with the details of the rules, how you measure the fish, how you take the photo, what other little details do people overlook that cost them placings?
Really, it's the photos. You know, that's really the number one thing that I should have said. You know, a new kayak angler really needs to practice how to take a picture of a fish.
So
how
they
to
need to
control
go
your
out
fish.
and just take pictures,
Right,
as though it's competition day to get it right.
Correct. Yeah. So it's taken me a lot of years to really kind of perfect, you know, that skill. And the other thing is always take multiple pictures. So you want to take multiple pictures for various reasons. The glare from the sun, you know, you could be drifting and the sun's at your back or in your face, and your identifier could be washed out. You know, the board could be washed out somewhat where you can't see the last line of, you know, the measurement. And so that's, I've had some heartache like that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's cost me, you know, a few inches here and there, but you know, practice. Know your rules inside and out. You know, your big rules, you know, deductions and things like that is
whether
huge.
it's you or someone else, you know the story, but what's the most expensive 1/4 inch that you know of in kayak fishing? That would be an inch. I would ask Chad that.
You know, I don't know, but I did. I lost $10,000 for a 1/4 of an inch. It wasn't for deduction, but it was. I had 9 fish, and it was actually the second year of the 10. I was the co-champion the first year, and because of that, I made it into the 10 the second year.
Yep.
And Jamie Dennison beat me by a 1/4 of an inch. He had 10 fish.
Wow.
I had 9, and to be honest with you, I look back on it, and you know, I had a lot of fish jump off, but I didn't adjust, and that's, you know, that's something that you really have to learn.
Yep.
And I stuck with the baits that they
hindsight, what adjustment would you have made in that situation?
I would have gone to a different bait. I was using a Texas rigged Strike King Rage Bug.
Yeah. And
was flipping that around brush, and the fish weren't eating it really well, and they'd throw the hook, and you know, it was frustrating, and I kind of, to be honest with you, I spun out. And
the mental aspect of it is huge.
Right.
How do you calm your brain down when you're like, oh, I need one more fish for limit, and I only have 90 minutes. How do you calm down enough to?
I do what I know. Like if I have 90 minutes left in a tournament and I'm really struggling for a bite, I put on a jackhammer.
Okay.
And I go and cover as much water as I can, and that calms me down because I'm moving,
Yep.
I'm looking for targets to throw at, kind of things, you know, I'm running through my head, hey, what did I catch those other 4 fish on?
Right.
As long as I have something going on, you know, and I can think about different things other than I just need that one bite, I'm trying to replay in my head, hey, where can I get another bite? It's tough. It's tough to do sometimes.
Right.
You know, because you know you're in contention, all you need is a 17-inch fish, and you know, there's some days where I'm calling out 17 inchers.
Right.
You know, and so it's a little frustrating, but yeah.
That's the sport.
That is. Yep, that's part of fishing. All right, guys, got a nice about a 20-incher that I just caught out on a brush pile, and wanted to talk to you guys real quick about some common mistakes that anglers make that may help, you know, veteran anglers as well as new anglers. So the first thing I always do is I get my board out. I don't have an identifier on here right now, but I always wet the board, and the reason for that is it kind of calms the fish down. You know, whether it's, you know, cold or hot, you know, that board holds a lot of heat, or, you know, being cold, and it just kind of relaxes the fish, keeps their slime coat on, things like that. So I'll wet the board, and 2 different ways to do this. The way that I'm most comfortable is laying the board across my lap. Some people do not like to do that for fear of the fish jumping, you know, off and straight into the water versus in the bottom of your boat. The other thing you can do is kind of tilt your board at an angle in the bottom of your boat so that you have a little more control of the fish. So a few mistakes that people do that's going to cause you a deduction is going to it's gonna be leaving the mouth open. So what I do is I'll close their mouth and I'll grab the fish and I'll kind of push down, make sure your hand's not under the gill, but just kind of cover their top of their dorsal fin, kind of push down on the fish just a bit and slide them forward. So, and then I will get my tail lined up to gain the most inches. And a perfect measurement on this fish right here is 19.5 inches. But like I said, some things that will get you disqualified, leaving that mouth open, or not disqualified, but deductions. And then keeping your hand down here in this area of the fish, touching the tail, pinching the tail, stuff like that. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of how to measure fish and you know, not get deducted, because it happens to all of us at some point. But a nice 19.5 incher, and we're gonna turn her loose here. Let her go on about her way. So it looks like I'm about 35 feet in front of me. There's a rock pile out there and it's holding a couple fish on top of it. So my game plan now for this tournament, or really for today, is to, I know there's fish on docks and I can probably catch them, but I think I'm gonna target rock piles and brush piles and see if I can, you know, mark as many as I can and have, you know, somewhat of a milk run for the event.
So what's the biggest fish you've caught in a kayak fishing tournament?
23 3/4.
Where was that?
That was actually at Bienville. I've caught a couple, actually I've caught a couple 23s. Caught a 23.5 at the national championship this past year. That really...
What do you think the weight was on that?
Fish was, it was on the skinnier side. It was probably 7.5 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, somewhere around that range. You know, if it was full.
Where did the one at Bienville hit?
Where did it hit?
Yeah,
I caught it in the last 15 minutes of the tournament, and I caught it on a rage bug pulling it up out of grass, and it actually hit right at the boat. So I was fishing some grass.
Surprise.
And, yeah, a heart attack fish.
That's awesome.
And same thing happened to me at Nationals this past year and the year before.
Yeah.
I caught two really big fish that, you know, really helped me. That's the kicker that you're looking for your bag, is the 23.
How good does that feel?
After that, I was jacked up. You know,
were you just floating about 12 feet above the surface of the lake?
I was elevated after that.
I would be.
That's for sure. Yeah, that gave me the confidence boost. I mean, it was the first fish of the day, you know, on day 2 of the event at Caddo, and there's a really big fish sitting right there. I don't know if you can see that in the shade, right under this bumper. There's 2 of them there. There's one over here. So check this out.
I saw it a minute ago. I just saw the shade of it.
I want you to watch this. Look at the fish up here.
Yep, I see it. You lost it, and you're back on it.
Cast out here these. So this dock is absolutely loaded with fish. But you can see all the fish out here cruising. Let's see if we can pan around a little bit. Let's see a few out there. There's 3, 4, 5.
And you're kind of moving that side to side.
Yeah, so this is perspective mode, so it's going to give you a cone that's...
Can you tell? Okay, so it's sideways as opposed to
right, it's turned...
It's like
horizontal instead of vertical.
Instead of this.
Correct. And that's called perspective mode. And what that's scout mode, so you can scout, you know, out in front of you. And then you have forward mode, which is a smaller beam, but it's top to bottom. and then you have down mode, which is turns the transducer completely down, and that's when you want to fish on the bottom.
Okay. So 3 different planes that you're
Correct.
slicing through.
So yeah, so what I've found so far is, some docks will hold 2 or 3, 4 maybe, really good size fish, and then there's other docks that have a lot of numbers of fish. They're your 13, 15 inchers. Good limit fish, but we found another really big fish that was really shallow. Kind of surprised me, but it was 8+ pounds, I would say, pretty easily, and kind of cruising around and sticking in that area. So I've got that one marked as well. So I have 2 really big fish that hopefully on Saturday, if I decide to come here, that's what I'll be targeting first thing in the morning, and lower light conditions and stuff like that. One thing I noticed is, not to sound ugly, but it seems like these nicer homes in this area don't have any brush piles. And some of the smaller, older homes have brush piles all around them.
Because they actually fish.
It's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's kind of what I've noticed is this side, for whatever reason, these are newer homes, newer docks. There's no brush piles around. They don't want brush piles out in front of their docks. And I think Jody's right. That's why he's not finding anything.
So you gotta fish in front of the older homes.
You need to fish in front of the old homes, man.
Yeah, the older docks are better.
Well, that's where the brush piles are. I think all these new homes, man.
Yeah, they ain't got nothing out of them yet. Sometimes when they're building them, though, they'll take them out and throw them out. But
well, that guy that I was talking to had said that he, when the water was real low about 4 years ago, he took all his yard trash and waste and put out there off by his dock. Brush piles and. I said, yeah.
I put 16 and a half on that dock right there.
I got a 16 over there.
Caught a 13 and a 12 up there.
So what does it mean to have someone out here that you travel with, that you get the Airbnb with and play off of each other? I mean,
First off, I eat good because Jody's known as the chef.
Yeah.
So that's always a positive, and if anybody knows me, they know that I like food.
Yeah.
But no, it's Jody and I have been fishing together for a few years now, and we fish very similar, and it's really worked out for us to break down water faster. And there's times where people have even mentioned it, but you'll find Jody and I it's similar to fishing in a bass boat. I mean, we'll be side by side, or nose to the stern of his boat, or vice versa, and we're fishing similar baits, or the same bait at times, and we're covering twice as much water. And once we find an area that has fish in it, we can really break it down and try to find something and replicate that pattern. But it's been great traveling with somebody, and somebody that you can rely on, and split cost of things, and whatnot.
Someone you can trust.
And someone you can trust. Yeah, trust Jody with everything. We share every bit of info that we have with each other, and we do that with other anglers as well. But we can bounce ideas off of each other, and it just works out well.
Cory, you fish a diverse array of types of fisheries, like marshy, cypress tree-filled lakes, deeper Appalachian-based reservoirs, some milfoil choked lakes, maybe tidal bass fisheries sometimes, and some northern smallmouth waters. What's your preparation for each of these types of fisheries look like? How do you, in terms of you bring a certain set of gear, a certain set of tackle that gets you ready for a grassy reservoir or grassy lake, as opposed to.
Yeah, there's some different gear that I bring. Frogs, grass areas, places that depends on the time of the year too. But the majority of the baits that I fish are going to work in all of those locations.
Right.
Now, up north, St. Clair and places like that, you know, that I've smallmouth fished on lakes, big bodies of water, you know, downsizing line, 6-8 pound test, you know, a lot of finesse baits, drop shot, shaky heads, you know, different colors and things like that. But, you know, I bring a lot of gear with me on the road.
What's your tackle organization in your vehicle look like?
Typically I have numerous amounts of my go-to confidence baits. You know, I have plenty of jackhammers, you know, all different sizes and colors of what I kind of go to. Plastics, I organize them by color and size, and I use these bait blocks back here. And, you know, I have 2 of these in my boat right now, one up in the front, one back here, and I have multiples of my confidence baits in different colors, different styles. But my truck has a ton of stuff in it that, you know, is just backup items.
So how is it organized in your truck? I mean, you got like a big...
I have a couple bait blocks and, you know, things like that. I typically, for this tournament, I kind of had an idea of what I was going to do, and I didn't bring as much. Even though I've never been to this body of water, I did enough research to kind of know what I would be doing. Other tournaments, I have big totes that are just chock full of baits, tons of stuff that, you know, basically every color that they make, just stuff that I may need. But I have other bins that are really organized, you know, just soft plastics. I have extra terminal tackle, you know, things along those lines. But I bring extra stuff. I bring, you know, I bring parts and things to fix my kayaks and other people's stuff. So my truck's got a lot of gear in it.
Man, that's a lively one. Oh, dude, that's awesome.
So if you had to narrow down your top 5 kayak fishing accessories, what is that?
Ooh, number 1 is my motor, my Torqeedo 1103, and you know, that's what powers that's what gets me to my fish and lets me cover a ton of water. And honestly, I can attribute a lot of my success to it. You know, I've been using it for a few years now, and I couldn't see myself kayak fishing without it, to be honest. So that's my number 1. Number 2 is going to be my electronics. I got to have electronics. That's my eyes under the water. You know, I'm running side scan. Side scan and live scope. I don't always have live scope with me. It really depends on where I'm fishing. Yesterday I didn't have it on my boat because I didn't think I needed it. Super shallow water and dirtier and round sticks and just covering a lot of water. Number 3, accessories. Gotta have my catch board. This thing has kind of taken the kayak world by storm. The polycarbonate and then the metal boards, which I use the metal boards during the competition just because I don't have the risk of actually breaking it. Not saying that this isn't durable. They're super durable compared to what we used to use, the hog trough, but I just can't, you know, I can't run into that situation. I keep this one though inside of my hull, like we spoke about earlier. Power pole is another one that is it's up there. A really good accessory for me, you know, depending on where I'm fishing. You know, shallow water, really anything 6 foot and less that I may need to anchor down and, you know, stay on a spot. I use it here, fishing a little deeper today. I didn't need to bring it. And then I'd say my, let's see.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah. I don't have it with me today because I'm practicing, and I don't always bring it in practice, but my leverage landing net, you know, that's a thing that not every angler brings with them. And having that leverage bent arm on that style net is really beneficial for one-handed netting, especially big fish. You just can control the net, pick up that weight easily. But without my net, I learned many years ago in a tournament forgot my net, and it cost me the tournament. I had fish jump off, you know, at the boat where I could have netted them easily, and that's something that I always have to have in a tournament. If I miss it, I turn around and I go back to the truck and go get it. But that's really my top 5 or 6 must-haves for my boat.
All right, man. Productive day on the water.
Yeah.
You got some brush piles marked. You got some patterns. At least one pattern started.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah, I've got some good docks marked that we're holding some big fish. We've got, like you said, some brush piles, backs of coves, and
you got one more day of pre-fishing. How are you using that time?
I'm actually going to go back to where I was yesterday, and the reason being is that area looks like it will fish more to my comfort zone,
Okay.
and to my strengths. Even though we didn't do well there, it really looks like...
You have faith that it's going to reload.
Yeah. So there is let's see. So that's a big group of fish there. Bunch of bait fish, possibly. There's shadows over here on the side, but...
It's a lot of food for sure.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and just mark that spot just to come back and look at it possibly.
Nice.
But yeah, so I'm gonna go tomorrow, and the plan is to you know, check out some shallower water up the river and fish wood, stuff like that. So those fish, it's just a matter of time before they're there.
Right.
You know, they're transitioning out of the deep river channel and pulling up onto that stuff. And you know, yesterday was just an off day too. It was cloudy, and you know, it rained for a few hours, and you know, I struggled last night. Do I come here and try it, or do I go back up there? And I figured I'd come down here and try to get this dialed in as best as possible, and this is my A spot for now.
Right.
If I do well tomorrow,
That may
probably
change.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But I have enough for 2 days, I think. You know, I could do a good milk run here and catch
Right.
a limit pretty quick, I feel like.
Nice.
And then, you know, up there, we'll see how it plays out.
Cool. I appreciate you letting me interview you and pick your brain and share your experience.
Absolutely, man. It was a blast. Had a
Yeah.
great day on the water with you, and we got to catch some fish together, so that's always a plus.
Cool. Good luck this weekend, man.
Thanks, buddy.